Genesis 1 verse 14 tells us, "Let there be lights in the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs, seasons, days, and years." It's a simple statement, but it hints at something profound, a cosmic calendar woven into the fabric of creation itself. The sun, moon, and stars were meant to do more than just illuminate. They were set as celestial markers, guiding humanity through the cycles of life and the rhythms of the universe. Yet if you look at the way we mark time today, it's not stars and seasons guiding us. It's the legacy of Roman emperors and papal councils, a patchwork of rules and reforms layered over centuries. Our months and years are shaped by political whims and historical accidents, not by the steady dance of the heavens. Somewhere along the way, the original rhythm, a 364-day cycle mapped to the movement of the heavens, seems to have vanished from our collective memory, replaced by systems more convenient for earthly rulers than for aligning with the cosmos. Was this shift accidental, or was it something more deliberate? The Book of Jubilees issues a stark warning. All the children of Israel will forget the path of the years, Jubilees 6:38. What if that warning hasn't just come true, but has quietly shaped how we experience the passage of time itself? Perhaps it's time to dig deeper, to rediscover the calendar that was meant to synchronize Earth with the heartbeat of the skies. A calendar that might just realign us with a forgotten harmony between heaven and earth. According to ancient tradition, the calendar wasn't simply a human invention, it was a divine gift. Enoch, the mysterious figure who walked with God, is said to have received this calendar directly from angels, 1 Enoch 72-82. These heavenly messengers revealed to him the patterns of the cosmos, unlocking a system that was meant to mirror the very order of creation. The Book of Jubilees goes even further, emphasizing Enoch's unique role as a scribe of the heavens. It declares that he wrote the signs of heaven for every year, Jubilees 4:17, ensuring that this celestial knowledge would not be lost. Through Enoch, the ancient world was given access to a calendar anchored not in human tradition, but in the wisdom and design of the Creator himself. What set this calendar apart was its flawless symmetry. Unlike the lunar-based calendars that constantly drift and demand complicated corrections, the 364-day system given to Enoch provided perfect consistency. Sabbaths always landed on the same dates, year after year, erasing any confusion about when to rest and when to work. Each week unfolded with a sense of reliability and purpose, guided by a structure that never wavered. Leviticus 23 verse 3 encapsulates this principle. 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is a Sabbath. This was more than a simple rule, it was a rhythm woven into the very fabric of time. God counts in sevens, and with this calendar, every aspect of life was synchronized with that sacred pattern. The result was a system as clear and harmonious as the stars themselves, reflecting the order of a universe shaped by divine hands. The shift began in winter, but this wasn't a harmless slip-up or an honest misunderstanding. It was an act of rebellion. The people knew what God required, but they chose to follow a system that suited their own interests and the rhythms of the world around them. Their calendar drift wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate move away from what God had set in place. One key way this rebellion showed up was in the way Sabbath observance shifted. Instead of honoring the Sabbath according to the original instructions, people began to align their rest days with the market cycles that followed the lunar calendar. These cycles were popular and convenient, but they were not what God had commanded. Sabbath breaking crept in through economic pressures and societal habits, subtly eroding the foundation of obedience. Festivals, too, lost their meaning. Celebrations that were meant to mark the spring harvest, anchored in God's solar calendar, became tangled up with the Babylonian lunar system, a calendar the Israelites had adopted during their exile. This blend of traditions defied God's intended solar rhythm and blurred the distinctiveness of his festivals. Nehemiah 13 verses 15-21 records the fallout, people working and trading on the Sabbath, ignoring the boundaries God had drawn, and living by a borrowed calendar rather than the one given to them at Sinai. Leviticus 25 verse 10 declares, "Consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land." This instruction isn't just an ancient law for Israel. It sets in motion a rhythm of time that God himself established. The Jubilee year, occurring every 50 years, was meant to reset society. Debts forgiven, slaves freed, land returned to its original owners. It was a radical act of restoration and grace, woven directly into the fabric of biblical history. These cycles aren't just symbolic or poetic devices, they are God's own method of marking history. The Jubilee isn't a metaphor. It's a divine calendar, a chronology that signals God's involvement with humanity through specific, recurring periods. Each Jubilee year stands as a reminder that time itself is under God's control, governed by patterns He set long before we started counting days and years. When Jesus began His public ministry, He made a point of announcing, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, to proclaim liberty to the captives." Luke 4 verses 18 to 21. Many scholars believe this was no coincidence, but a deliberate declaration during a Jubilee year. Jesus was stepping into the flow of God's appointed times, fulfilling prophecy and announcing a new era of spiritual freedom. His ministry was, in a real sense, the ultimate Jubilee. According to some interpretations, the 70 cycles of Jubilee since Adam's time align with the anticipated return of the Messiah. This isn't just an abstract theory, it's a way of reading God's clock for humanity. To ignore these divinely appointed cycles is to overlook the schedule God has set for His greatest works. Understanding the Jubilee means staying awake to God's timing, so that we don't miss the moments He's planned from the very beginning. While Rome and other ancient cities burned their sacred texts, Ethiopia made sure these important writings survived. This preservation is a remarkable story of faith and cultural dedication. One key example can be found in the Book of Enoch, which is part of ancient Jewish texts not included in the Standard Bible. In 1 Enoch 104:11-12, it is written that the righteous will inherit the calendar. This phrase hints at a deep connection between righteousness and the way we measure time. It suggests that understanding and following the right calendar is a sign of virtue. Decades later, the scholars of the Dead Sea Scrolls uncovered manuscripts that support this idea. One of these, called 4Q319, shows behind-the-scenes evidence from the community at Qumran. Its contents reveal that the priests there never abandoned the unique calendar system hinted at in the Enoch writings. This scroll confirms that the Qumran community valued timekeeping based on celestial events. It was so important to them that they preserved it for centuries, guarding it against outside influences or losing tradition. Today, Ethiopia still honors this ancient connection to the stars. The Ethiopian New Year, called Enqutatash, begins with the rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. This event was also recorded long ago by Enoch, linking the modern celebration to the ancient texts. When Ethiopians celebrate their new year, they mark the moment Sirius becomes visible at dawn. This simple act continues a tradition that goes back thousands of years. It shows how deeply intertwined their culture is with the cosmos and their history. This story highlights the importance of preserving knowledge. While many civilizations destroyed their sacred writings, Ethiopia kept its ancient texts alive. Their commitment helped maintain a link to a time when calendars, stars, and faith shaped daily life. These enduring traditions remind us how ancient wisdom can still influence us today. They also prove that the desire to understand our place in the universe has always been a universal quest shared across many cultures and faiths. Rejecting God's calendar is more than ignoring a schedule. It is a direct challenge to His authority. God's time commands, like the Sabbath and the cycles of the moon, are designed to remind us of His sovereignty over all creation. When we dismiss these divine patterns, we refuse to acknowledge His rule over time itself. Romans 13 verse 11 tells us to understand the present time, urging us to grasp the importance of living according to God's schedule. Today, we see this rejection reflected in the chaos of our world, climate collapse and economic crashes. These crises are not random. They trace back to human refusal to honor God's times and laws, especially the Sabbath, which is meant to be a day of rest and reflection. When we choose work over worship or ignore the rhythms God set, we upset the balance of nature and society. The earth suffers from climate change due to neglect of God's creation and the broken Sabbath cycle. Economies falter because they chase endless growth while ignoring divine principles of rest and fairness. Yet, hope remains. The Bible offers the promise that everything will be restored. Isaiah 66 verse 23 declares that from new moon to new moon, and Sabbath to Sabbath, all mankind will worship the Lord before Him. This means that one day, everyone will recognize God's sovereignty and honor his divine schedule. Restoration will bring harmony between God, mankind, and creation. It will be a time of universal worship, peace, and proper order, where God's laws are no longer dismissed but embraced completely. This hope encourages us to return to God's times now and accept his authority to heal and restore a broken world. Jubilees 1:29 offers a powerful promise: I will heal them and reveal my calendar. This verse speaks of two key actions, healing and revealing, that carry deep spiritual significance. When God promises to heal, he is not just talking about physical sickness, but also healing broken hearts, damaged relationships, and wounded spirits. It's an invitation for renewal and restoration at every level of life. Healing can come in many forms, providing comfort in times of pain and strength in moments of weakness. The second promise, revealing God's calendar, points to understanding divine times and seasons. This is about more than just marking days on a calendar. It's about recognizing God's appointed times, times for renewal, celebration, reflection, and rest. Throughout history, understanding these times has helped people align their lives with God's divine plan. When people are aware of his calendar, they can better find purpose in each season, knowing what God is doing in the world and in their lives. Share this truth. It is a call to acknowledge God's power to heal and his wisdom to reveal his timing. This knowledge breaks the chains of confusion, doubt, and distraction that society and Babylon impose. Babylon often distorts our view of time and purpose, leading us away from what is truly important. Speaking of Babylon here symbolizes worldly systems that distract from divine truth and keep people bound in cycles of chaos and distraction. The act of breaking Babylon's chains involves awakening to divine truth and resisting worldly influences that keep us enslaved. It beckons us to return to the rhythm of creation, an order carefully designed by God at the beginning of time. This divine rhythm is rooted in understanding the seasons, cycles, and divine appointments woven into creation itself. When we realign with this rhythm, life begins to make sense anew, and we experience a sense of purpose and peace. This verse reminds believers to embrace the healing power of God and to seek a deeper understanding of his divine schedule. In doing so, they can free themselves from spiritual bondage and walk in harmony with his perfect timing. It is an invitation to renew the mind, spirit, and daily routine, returning to a divine pattern that underpins all creation. It calls us to live intentionally, embracing God's promises to restore and reveal, so that we can step into the fullness of his plan.